Good day, learners. Welcome to Social Sciences Geography for Term 3. We are going to have a discussion on a sample question paper for the Term 3 control test. I remember you understand, or it is to the best of your knowledge, that you know that in Term 3 for grade 9 in Social Sciences, you have a short paper, which is basically a paper on the river processes and soil erosion, which is out of 50 marks. So we're going to take a sample of the paper and try to go through the paper and try to discuss possible responses to the given questions as a way of trying to prepare you for the Term 3 test, and also most importantly to prepare you for the exit examination for the GET phase. Right, so we're seeing this is our control test for grade 9 to be written in about 1.5 hours. Right. The first question is based on the first topic, which is surface forces that shape the Earth. We're going to look at multiple choice questions. Right, the first question is saying the wearing away of rocks and soil by the action of the weather. The wearing away of rocks and soil by the action of weather. What do we call that process? That process is the process of weathering. That is the process of weathering. If rocks are wearing away by the action of the weather, right? We move on to the next question. Dash involves the physical forces that breaks up the rocks. Dash involves the physical forces. When we are looking at physical forces, what are we saying here? Physical forces, we are looking at physical weathering, or what you can also call mechanical weathering in another dimension. So what we call physical or mechanical weathering is the process of that breaks away physical forces that break out rocks. So our correct response for number 1.12, it is physical or mechanical. We can also classify this as mechanical. Right. Number 113, it says dash involves the following are agents of weathering. What are the agents of weathering? Otherwise, we are saying what are the elements of the environment which are responsible for the breaking down of rocks. Those are what we refer to as the agents of weathering. So our basic agents of weathering, if we look at it from that particular process, we can see that the process is the agents of weathering are temperature and water. Temperature, changes in temperature, they facilitate the physical breakup of rocks. And also if we look at water facilitates also the freeze-thaw action process, which is responsible for the breaking down of rocks. Right. Then the next question is saying rain contains carbon dioxide that is dissolved in the droplets of water, turning rain into a weak acid called carbonic acid. We are looking at carbon dioxide here. Right, the influence of carbon dioxide dissolving in rainwater, creating acidic rain, carbonic acid, it leads to the type of weathering which we call carbonation. So that's carbonation for that particular question. Moving on to the next question. It says number 1.15, dash weathering caused by plants, animals, and people. What kind of weathering is caused by plants, animals, and people? We are seeing that those are living things. Those are living things. So living things, they contribute to biological weathering. So it's biological. Then 116, the question is saying, dash does not dissolve in water. Does not dissolve in water. Something soluble means something that dissolves. Something insoluble, it can't. Something dissolved is already dissolved in water, and limestone can also be dissolved in water. So we are looking at something which is insoluble. All right, moving on to the next question. Is the removal of the outer layer of a rock after repeated contraction and expansion. Series of expansion and contraction, what do they contribute to? They contribute to a process of weathering that we call exfoliation. The rocks peel off in layers, like those layers comparable to layers of an onion. That is basically how the exfoliation process happens. As the rock is heated, it expands and cracks develop. If it's cooled at night, it contracts, and those series of alternate heating and contraction will result in the rocks developing cracks, and those cracks will lead to the rock layers peeling off. Right, moving on. Oxidation changes iron minerals in rocks to form a light gray color to a brown red color, which is called, what do you call that substance, which is a brown reddish color, which is caused by the reaction of oxygen and iron minerals. That is iron oxide, which is rusting. So our response is rusting. Right, I'll move on to the next question. The next question is saying, human activities have impact on weathering by burning fossil fuels, which makes air to be. Burning of fossil fuels, it adds carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that carbon dioxide, it dissolves in rainwater. It forms what you call acidic. It becomes acidic. Right. Then you have a group of plants grow on rocks are called. Those group of plants that grow on rocks, they are called the lichens. Right. We move on to the next question. Question number 2 is a matching item question. It says match the concepts in column A with possible descriptions in column B. Write only. For example, 1, 2, 6, the response is D. So we want to try to match this. Right. Before we try to match, we want to try to explain them so that we can be easily be able to look at the responses and find the correct responses. Right. What we call a meander. A meander is a bend or a loop along the river channel. That is basically we're going to look for a response in line with that. It's a bend or a loop in the river channel. Then monoculture is the growing of one crop year after year. We are growing the same crop over a piece of land year after year. Then an oxbow lake. An oxbow lake forms from meanders when the meander loop breaks off. So it forms basically from meander when they finally break off. When they are cut off, the oxbow lakes will form. Then soil erosion, we understand, is the removal of topsoil. Then deforestation, we can define this as the removal of vegetation or deliberate cutting of vegetation. Right, so looking at the responses, we want to try to match these items here quickly with the given responses available. Right, so if we check on our responses, we want to try and identify a response which matches with a meander. A, it can't be. B, it cannot be. C, a river flowing follows a winding and turning course. So this becomes our correct response. If a river is winding, it means it's meandering. So C, monoculture, growing one kind of crop in a field year after year, which is E. Then oxbow lake, formed by a U-shaped curve in a stream that was cut off, which is D. Then soil erosion, we're looking at process of soil being removed from the land, which is B. Then deforestation, removing trees from the land, which is A. So those are our correct responses for that question. We move on to the next question. Refer to the sketch of a river, of river courses below and then answer the questions. Right, we are having our river's longitudinal profile, as we can see there. We have A, which is the uppermost part from where the river starts, and B, which is the mature stage of the river, and we go to C, which is the old age of the river. Then the question says, identify river courses A, B, and C. We have to identify those river courses labeled A, B, and C. So if we can see from there, at A is where the river is actually starting in the upper course of the river. So this area here, we call this the upper course. Then we go to the mid part, it's called the middle course. Then we go to the last part, it's called the lower course. Right. Then moving on to the next question, the stage of the river labeled A is associated with which kind of erosion? Right, if we check here, we have V-shaped valleys. When the river is starting, the river valley is almost V-shaped like that one. These V-shaped valleys are caused by the type of erosion which we call vertical erosion, or is downward erosion. That's the nature of erosion that is dominant in the upper course of the river, leading to the creation of deep and narrow-shaped valleys, is because the dominant type of erosion is downward or is vertical, is targeting to deepen the river channel. Right, I will move on to the next part. The next part is saying, explain why the river course labeled B has a wider shape. Right, if we check here, the river is now wider than what it was here. It was narrow initially, but here now you can see the river is now wider. Why is it wider? What makes the river wider here is because of the change in nature of erosion. On this part here, we have what we call lateral erosion, or what we call sideway. Meaning to say, erosion is no longer vertical, like deepening the channel, like what it was, what it used to be in the upper course. Now erosion is taking place on the sides of the river banks here. It's eroding sideways, going in this direction and going in this direction. So as a result, the river channel becomes wider for the reason being there is now lateral erosion, which is responsible for sideway wearing of the river banks, creating a wider river channel. Right, the next question says, feature marked 1 is called meander. Explain how erosion and deposition cause meanders to change the shape in a river valley. Right, I'll quickly explain. I'll quickly explain here. Right, it says we're looking at feature marked 1 is called a meander. Explain how erosion and deposition cause meanders to change shape in a river valley. Right. What happens with a meander? I will try to illustrate on a clear page so that maybe it makes right. A meander, basically, we are saying is like this. It's a bend along the river channel. The river is winding. Right. So let's assume our direction of flow is this. The river is flowing in this direction. It's flowing in this direction. Then what is going to happen at this bend here? This is what we call this part here of the bend. We call it the outer bank of the meander. And this one is called the inner bank of the meander. So what happens is velocity of water is faster here. Water flows faster and there is erosion taking place. And on the inner part here, because of the nature of the curve, water flows slower and there is deposition. So for this reason, if you are to draw a cross section, a cut across cross section via this line from point A to point B, if you are to illustrate this on a cross section, how the river channel looks like, if you are to look at it from a side view, we are going to see that if we draw our A here, on A, the river is going to be deep and steep sloping. Then as we go to B, it's going to be gentle. So our B comes this side, our A is this side, and let's assume our water is like this. So for this reason, we are saying there is erosion on this side. That is why it's steep sloping, because the area is being eroded. And there is deposition on this side. That's why this area is gently sloping. There's material that is being deposited here. And for that reason, if there's erosion and there's deposition, it means we are going to have meander migration. The meander is going to move. We will not maintain the same position because there's erosion here. It means the land is going to keep on being eroded and material being deposited here. So as a result, our meander is going to migrate in this direction here. So basically, that is how meanders are going to change direction. They are going to shift to the side of the outer bend of the meander because that is where erosion takes place, and they are moving away from the side which is gently sloping where there's deposition. Right. Let's move on to the next question. The course marked C has main tributaries. Describe the effect of this in the river. The course marked C has many tributaries. If you check the course marked C in the lower course there. Right. So the question is saying, describe the effect of this in the river. If there are many tributaries, means we have high discharge. We have high discharge. But however, what you must note, you must always note that in the extreme lower course, those ones, we will be calling them distributaries. They will be called remember there's a difference between a tributary and a distributary. A tributary feeds into the main river, like this. If this is A feeding into B, it's a tributary. But if like this, one major river splitting, this is now a distributary. So when we have main tributaries, the likely effect is we're going to have high discharge of the river because those tributaries are going to feed into the main river. Then it says deltas and levees are formed in the third course. They are formed in the third course of the river, which is the lower course. As a result of river flood deposits and sand and silt on the river bank, discuss two benefits of levees and deltas on farmers. But I understand when we're talking of levees, we are looking at raised river banks. The river banks which are raised above the normal river banks. Why do they get raised naturally? They get raised naturally by the process of erosion taking place in that particular part of the river. If the river, by deposition, if the river deposits material, the material will accumulate, and that accumulated material is going to facilitate the formation of those natural embankments which are by the sides of the river banks. So the levees, mainly, they are important for reducing the risk of flooding. Because they are raised, it means they can go offer some cover to flood because of their height. So for that reason, we can benefit from the levees because of that particular reason. And also the fertile soil on the levees, they assist or they can be used for productive farming. Because there's fertile soil close to the levees there because of the deposited bacteria. The silt and the alluvium which is deposited there will contribute to soil fertility, and we can effectively use them for successful farming. And also we can say they can help direct the flow of water. Because they happen along the river banks, which means they give guidance to the direction of flow of water, which means they act as channels towards the flow of water. Water becomes channelized because of the embankments by the sides of the river banks. Then I will also look at the significance of the deltas. We want to look at deltas also. Why are deltas important? Deltas, they are important for, they have got high fertile areas. They are high fertile areas because of the deposits. We can use them for extensive crop production. Because the soil is fertile, we can grow crops there. And also, the other reason why we can justify that deltas are important, they provide an easy source of water. Water is easily accessible in a delta, and hence farmers can benefit by accessing water either for livestock and also for crop production. Then we can see the deltas also, they can be effectively used as part of fishing process. They are very rich in providing fish resources. So farmers can also benefit by getting fish from the delta areas. Those areas are flat and it's easily accessible, which means fishing activities and also the same as farming activities can effectively be undertaken, and that will reap positive results for either of the activities. Right, that was question number 2316. We'll move on to the next question. It's an overgrazing case study. I just have to go through the case study and find the relevant information. Right, explain the concept of overgrazing. Right, when we're talking of overgrazing, we understand to graze, we are feeding livestock on natural grazing lands. We are feeding livestock on the natural grazing lands. So if it's over, it means now there's a problem there. We are now having a situation whereby the livestock is excessively feeding on the available pastures. They are now excessively leading to the destruction or unsustainable management of the pastures. There is what we call the carrying capacity of a given area. If we exceed the carrying capacity, it means we are doing now injustice to the pastures. They will get destroyed by the fact that we're having too many animals who are sustaining on a smaller piece of land. And as a result, they are going to trample on the land and overeat the available pastures until the area is destroyed and is unsustainable for farming purposes. So the concept basically addresses the problem of overfeeding of the pastures by livestock. Effects of overgrazing, according to the case study, we just have to pick the effects of case study in the given text. Right, it says the Mangos is a remote rural community in South Africa's Eastern Cape. It is home to almost 6,000 people and practices agriculture in a sustainable way, where almost all households depend on their crops and livestock for a living. This area, however, was hit by malnutrition, as most farmers could not be able to harvest a lot from their crops due to challenges of erosion. It was discovered in the process that the cause of erosion in most farming fields was due to the practice of monoculture in their farming methods, right? The area spent the entire year in 2017 with no access to basic things like such as Memo. The people of Mangosi recovered the following year by practicing better ways of planting their crops. The joy was short-lived as they was hit by another farming issue. In the year 2018, people of Mangosi struggled with the challenge of overgrazing. And in the results conducted by Fibertech South Africa, the effects that were recorded included our answers. We get them here. Plants having not enough time to grow before they are grazed. We also had bare patches of soil appearing and animals not getting enough nutrition from the remaining grass. Animals becoming less healthy and eventually dying in numbers. Those are the effects as highlighted in the text. Those effects from the text. Right. Give two problems caused erosion according to the case study. Two problems caused by erosion in the case study. We are told of erosion here. They were hit by malnutrition and they could not be able to harvest from their crops due to erosion. Right. The next question is saying, name and explain two sustainable grazing methods that can be used to limit erosion. When you are looking at sustainable methods, you are looking at methods that can last longer and that assist in maintaining the grazing areas. So we need to find methods which are sustainable, methods which can last, which can help maintain our grazing lands. The common methods there is rotational grazing. Or we can do paddocking. As methods of sustaining our grazing pastures. How will these problems affect residents in Mangos? Mention two impacts on people's lives. The problems caused by erosion. How can they affect people? We are told that there was malnutrition and also they could not harvest a lot from their crops. So what are the typical problems? Malnutrition, it leads to poor health. Or it can also lead to increased health bills. People have to spend a lot on their health because of malnutrition. And also we are looking at people having not to harvest enough. We have the typical problem of famine, food shortages. People did not harvest enough, they don't have enough to feed their families, there will be famine. And also it will lead to increased food prices. Food prices will rise if there's a shortage in the amount of food available for people. In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, suggests strategy that commercial farmers would put in place to prevent erosion in agriculture. What must farmers do to prevent erosion? We're going to highlight some of the methods which are simple and common in geography. We apply methods which are simple, like doing crop rotation. We rotate our crops to maintain our soil structure. We avoid overgrazing. We do rotational grazing. We do afforestation. Can also do reforestation. Right. We can also practice terraced farming in areas which are steep sloping. We can also apply other methods like the application of mulching. It's another sustainable strategy that you can use, adding mulch to the soil to enhance the soil structure. Right. We can basically say those are some of the possible responses that you can use to ultimately answer those questions. So basically, if you're looking at this question paper, it's an average question paper for an average learner where one can easily score a very good mark for the test. Right. That takes us to the end of this discussion for geography or grade 9. Thank you for watching.